different types of dogs with jobs, specifically different types of assistance animals. Because basically, there are tons of different amazing animal jobs, an endless list. There's police dogs that assist your local police station with pursuing criminals or searching for different illegal things like drugs or guns. Then there's military service dogs that serve in combat. They are trained to protect their platoon, search for different things in order to alert them to different dangers. Search and rescue dogs rescue people from dangerous situations, whether they might be drowning or maybe buried under an avalanche. Mine detection and bomb sniffing dogs are trained to pick up the chemical smell that people aren't able to and find where the bombs or landmines are located so that they don't detonate and hurt people. Then there's herding dogs, which is still a very widespread job. There's actually a full entire breed group devoted to different types of herding breeds. And some of you might recognize this picture from the movie Homeward Bound. Great movie for any animal lover out there. Definitely a classic, but I'm sure you guys can think of a movie that features animal actors. So they usually work very hard with a handler to train on specific tasks and commands so that they'll be able to perform them in the scenes in the movie. But like I said, I could do a whole another presentation just on all the different jobs and how those animals are trained to do those jobs. But today I'm going to talk about assistance animals because these are the types of animal jobs that everyday people are most likely to encounter just in normal life. So you guys have probably heard of at least one or two of these before. Service dogs are probably the most well known and definitely the only ones covered under law. So they've been around the longest. They are trained to assist someone with a disability, whatever that disability might be. Therapy animals are a bit different. So they visit people in different situations like hospitals, nursing homes, support groups, cancer centers, schools, or special education programs, and they're there to provide love and friendship, support, kind of change up that person's day, give them some extra friendship in a time of need. And an emotional support pet, that's for the owner when they might be struggling with a mental condition, or maybe they're having an episode of anxiety or something where they need that animal to help refocus them and help calm them down. So we'll talk about the details because it's easy to confuse the three different jobs, but they all have a very different specific purpose. So service dogs are trained to assist someone with specific tasks. They are the most specialized type of assistance animal. Often it takes service dogs over a year or several years to train. Usually they start them when they're young, although it is possible to adopt a service dog. They do usually look for dogs that are younger because they really want to work on a lot of different behaviors and commands. Because they are supposed to be focused on helping just one person who has a disability, and those specific tasks are designed to make life a little bit easier for that person or work around some obstacles that they might have. So there are many different types of service dogs for that reason, but all are highly trained for the specific person for that specific type of disability the person has. That's why there's seeing eye dogs for the blind, mobility disability dogs for those in wheelchairs or who might need help getting around, seizure alert dogs for people with epilepsy, so they're able to alert them when they might be having an epileptic episode, or if someone has diabetes, there's diabetic alert dogs. Really, there's lots of different types of service dogs, but they're specially and specialized for that type of service. So, service dogs directly help overcome the challenges of that specific disability. That's why they're covered under the law, Americans with Disabilities Act, that was passed in 1990. And that's a national, federal law that covers every single state. Um, these assistance animals are allowed in public spaces because the person with the disability, can't help it, and they need that animal to help them perform different various tasks. So they're allowed to take them wherever they might need to. So that's why it's important. You might see for sale online different accessories or vests, different logos that you could put on any dog, or if you hear someone talking about saying they're going to claim that their dog is the service dog, that's really the wrong thing to do and is disrespectful to people who need service dogs or have a disability, because that animal goes through a lot of training to be able to help this person who has that specific condition. So, and remember, these dogs are working for their handler only. They're not, there to entertain, or you shouldn't, try to approach or pet them. They are busy and need to be focused on whatever their owner needs them to do. So, fun fact that service dogs can only be dogs and mini horses in very rare cases, but according to the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, only dogs and mini horses can be qualified as service animals or service dogs. So sorry to all the cats, guinea pigs, or other critters that were hoping to be service dogs, but mainly this reason is because they want these animals to be highly trained. They want it to be covered under the law, so not easy for someone to try and pass any animal off as a service animal. And usually service dogs, they don't have to be a specific breed, but often they are a medium-sized type of dog, because the dog needs to be able to do a variety of different tasks. If they're too small, like they wouldn't make a good dog for a mobility disability service dog, because that person might need to actually use them, a little bit to put their weight on to help shift around or move about their house. They might have to open doors for that person. So that's why often you'll see most service dogs are retrievers of some sort, or at least a medium or large size dog that can handle lots of daily activity. So next is therapy animals. So they are there to provide love and friendship to all. And they do go through quite a bit of training. We actually have a therapy animal or positive pet therapy group of volunteers through the Humane Society, and they get certified with their animal to be able to go to these places. So often it's through the Canine Good Citizen certification. That's what we require at NAHS, but there's different organizations like Pet Partners or what is it? Therapy Dogs International. So there's lots of different options if you're interested in getting your pet certified and visiting people. But this tests their disposition and their manners to make sure that they're going to be friendly to everyone they meet, and that they'll be able to handle new situations like going into different buildings, meeting lots of new people, encountering possibly other animals or different distractions. So while they're not as specifically and highly trained as service dogs, they still need to be trained and go through some kind of testing to prove that they'll be safe in different places that they might visit. But they are there to share love, friendship, and fun to everyone they meet, because usually they're visiting, like I mentioned before, nursing homes, assisted living centers, special education programs, support groups, hospitals, cancer centers, places where people might be going through a difficult time, or maybe don't have access to lots of different things that they usually do. So they really benefit from an animal that can provide that extra love and support. So that's why therapy animals are the only assistance animal that focuses on several people. They're there to benefit everyone and make people feel good. And their owner or handler is the one who's really volunteering and providing that service. They're the ones taking the animal to these different places to visit the people in need. So, once again, they are the only type of assistant animals that somebody could actually approach and pet. Although it's always, polite and the right thing to do, the safe thing to do, to ask an owner before you pet any animal. That should be a standard, but you would be surprised how many people just approach service dogs, which are busy at work, whereas, most therapy animals are very friendly, probably want you to approach them, but still always make sure that you ask the owner or handler. Um, as I mentioned, they visit lots of different types of places. The list can go on and on, but usually they're nursing homes, assisted living, hospitals, schools, libraries, trauma centers, support groups, those types of things. And they are focused on groups or multiple people at a time at these facilities. And the way that service dogs are allowed in these places is the facility approves their visitation. So they're not covered by law, but let's say, your local school in District 203, they might approve visits by a therapy animal, or your grandma's nursing home says that it's okay as long as you have those official certification documents. So the rules are kind of specific to each facility. It really depends, but that's why for our therapy animals at Naperville Area Humane Society, they get the certification through the Canine Good Citizen, and most places allow that, and they're covered through the shelter. They're affiliated with us. And these animals are there for anyone and everyone. So you can approach them after asking the owner, and they always love making new friends. So therapy animals are really the only ones that you should be petting after you ask, whereas service dogs and emotional support pets, their jobs are a lot different. So that's why you shouldn't be approaching them or asking to pet them. And pretty much any animal can be a therapy animal as long as they're trained, they are comfortable going into those new situations, or can handle different distractions. I would say that most often therapy animals are dogs and cats, although I've definitely heard of therapy guinea pigs and rabbits. I don't think you'll find too many therapy tarantulas, but you never know. So, but once again, they definitely need at least some kind of training and some type of proof that they'll be safe in a variety of situations. So next is emotional support pets. Often, and really their actual title is emotional support animals, but for the sake of making a differentiation between service dogs, therapy animals, and emotional support pets, I'm going to be calling them that for this presentation, because really their sole purpose is to comfort their owner and just their owner. So they have a strong bond with them, but their owner might suffer from some type of mental condition, like I mentioned earlier. So, like the name states, emotional support pets, their owner needs them for that emotional support to calm down in a tough situation or help them refocus while they might be having an episode. So their job is to provide comfort. However, they're not usually specifically trained, and they're not providing or doing a variety of different tasks. They usually have just one task, which is to, stay close to the owner, be calm, and stay near them, let them pet them, and interact with their owner is really what they're doing in order to help calm them down. So they might look the same as any other pet that you see, but the owner, once again, needs them to calm down or feel secure while they're dealing with their mental condition. So remember, they're there for their owner only. So while they're not service dogs or therapy animals and function differently, we really shouldn't be approaching them. And often people who have emotional support pets will put some type of vest or bandana, something to mark that, they are performing a job. So they usually live with their owner and travel with their owner. However, they're not always allowed into public spaces without approval. Most are going to be covered as long as the owner is able to provide a doctor's note. But the rules vary from state to state or city to city. They're not covered by a federal or national law. So once again, it can kind of be harder to spot them since there's not one single standard for emotional support pets. Um, these animals are for just that one individual with that emotional need or condition. So you should not approach them or ask if you should pet them unless you know the owner well and you're going to spend time with them. That's a little bit different since they are this person's pet. So you still want to always ask them, but if you just see someone who you think has an emotional support pet, while you're out grocery shopping or at the park, most often it's best just to let them keep doing what they're doing. And any type of animal can be an emotional support pet. Once again, there's not really a standard since there is no national law stating what an emotional support pet should be or what they do, whereas service dogs are very distinctly laid out in the Americans with Disabilities Act. So, but remember, the human must provide some type of doctor's note or paperwork in a lot of cases for it to be considered an emotional support pet instead of just a regular pet. So that's why someone with an emotional support pet might be able to live somewhere where they don't allow pets because they gave the landlord a doctor's note to prove that they need the emotional support pet. So here's a little chart kind of showing a quick comparison of all the different assistance animals. Um, Pet Partners has a great printable version, so if you just Google therapy animal versus service dog, Pet Partners, you can easily find that PDF or picture and print it out if you need it for a quick reference. But basically, this just shows you that if you look at the different columns and rows here, therapy animals are the only ones that are designed to benefit multiple people, whereas service dogs and emotional support pets are the ones benefiting just a single person. And therapy animals, because they're benefiting multiple people, are the only ones you're allowed to approach or pet. Um, Service dogs and therapy animals are the ones that are trained or evaluated. Emotional support pets don't need to be specifically trained. Service dogs are the only ones allowed in any public space because it really depends, once again, on your local laws if the emotional support pet will be allowed into whatever type of given space. Um, Therapy animals do require proof of training, though. Service dogs actually don't require proof of training. And there's a couple of different reasons for that. Basically, it's illegal to ask someone why they need a service dog because that's kind of like asking them why they have a disability, which obviously isn't a nice thing to do. So, what you're allowed to ask is this a service dog and what is it trained to do? So that way you're not asking any type of intrusive or rude questions, but you're still asking questions that will allow you to kind of figure out, is this dog specifically trained for a task, which is what a service dog will do. Um, I think there is something in the law that if a dog someone claims is a service dog is misbehaving, that's really the only instance where they're not allowed in a public space. But when you think about it, service dogs, like I mentioned, go through such extensive training. It's extremely rare that they would misbehave to that extent. So that's kind of the way to not call too much attention to someone's disability, but still really focus on what the animal is able to do in the law. But therapy animals often do require some type of paperwork in order to be able to visit that specific location. And emotional support pets, similar, but with a doctor's note. It's really by location if they allow emotional support pets, but they usually do have to prove some type of need for the emotional support pet. But all of them provide comfort and support to some degree. They are all performing a job for their owner or for different people. So it's really important to kind of understand the little differences between them because it makes a big difference in practice. So, some special things to note: all types of working animals provide comfort, support, and friendship to those they work with. It's the way in which that they provide these things that kind of is different and determines their work. Um, like I mentioned, there's really no paperwork or certification for emotional support pets or service dogs. Therapy animals are the only ones who have to prove their abilities in order to be able to visit those places in the first place. Whereas the doctor's note is more for the person for emotional support pets. And service dogs, like I mentioned, there's very specific questions written into the law so that it makes it difficult for people to pass off any dog as a service dog, but it also protects, the privacy of someone with a disability. Um, and it's okay to approach a therapy dog that you've never met before as long as you ask the owner, but you should never approach a service dog or emotional support pet. Um, and the best way to think of it is that therapy animals are there for everyone, but service dogs and emotional support pets, since they're focused on a single person, they're for that one person only and shouldn't be bothered. So I thought we could kind of break it down a little bit more, since there usually are different cues to look out for to help you figure out whether you're dealing with a therapy animal or emotional support pet or service dog. So service dogs almost always wear a vest or a collar or maybe some type of mobility device or something that will aid the person with the disability to help handle the animal. And it's usually red or brightly colored, and almost always will say service on it. So that way it's clear this dog is busy, he is a service dog, he is helping someone with a disability. The handler will probably look like any other person or pet owner, though. So it's important to be watching the dog because they will be the ones wearing the vest. Whereas therapy animals, it might vary depending on which organization. Like I mentioned, there's Pet Partners. I think their colors are orange, and Therapy Dogs International, I think they're like gray and red. But for our positive pet therapy volunteers, they're blue after Naperville Area Humane Society. So they all wear a blue bandana on their animal. And the handler actually has a t-shirt with the same logo to match. So pretty much all therapy animal organizations do try to match the handler to the animal, or at least the handler will wear a name tag or something identifiable with that therapy animals organization's logo. So make sure you're looking at both the animal and the person because they'll probably match, or something will have a big logo saying, therapy animals or positive pet therapy, something along those lines. Because they want to make it clear that they're there to, their job is to provide love to everyone. So they want people to approach them and ask to interact with them. Emotional support pets are kind of the gray area. They're in between. So they might wear a vest, a collar, a bandana, or another accessory. It could really be anything. Or they might not be wearing any vest or accessory at all. But most people do put something with emotional support animal. Like I said, that is the true title. So look for just ESA or some type of logo similar to this. That's the national or America's emotional support animal logo. Usually it is a brightly colored vest, but not always. And the handler will probably look like just any other person or pet owner. So it's really important to pay attention to the dog in this one, but also how the dog is interacting with the owner. If they're really just focused on them, they're not approaching others, then you kind of have an idea that this animal is probably an emotional support pet. If it's not wearing any type of accessory, or if it just says ESA and it's focused solely on the owner, you know it's an emotional support pet. Whereas therapy animals, they'll probably be matching, the blue bandana to the volunteer's blue t-shirt with the therapy animal logo. And they'll probably approach you or make an effort to say hi. And this is the only type of assistance animal that will do that. They'll probably be walking around and greeting people. So they're very social most times. Service dogs, however, complete opposite. The handler will not approach you if they're busy doing something and their dog needs to focus on the task at hand. So they'll probably not say hello or try to address you because they want their dog to keep on what they're doing. They don't want to stop them in the middle. That's not good for their training or behaviors because it's something that a service dog really needs to focus on all the time. And when their owner gets a service dog, they actually go through training a little bit as well on the different commands and how to best use the service dog. And they're trained that, or told that when the dog takes the vest off, that indicates that, he's off duty and he can pause on his job for right now. So there's ways that service dogs get to let out energy just like every other type of dog, but when they have that vest on, they need to be super focused on their owner and what their owner needs. So I figured we can try to look at some of these pictures and figure out what type of assistance animal this is in the picture. So look for the different cues that we just mentioned here, like whether they're wearing a vest or collar versus a bandana, what type of colors they are, or the logos associated with that, and how the animal is interacting with the owner or with other people, because that's how you're going to determine which type of assistance animal it is. So I'll show you guys the picture for a few seconds and then we'll go over the answer, and there's a couple of pictures coming up as well. So if you look, this dog is wearing the blue bandana. It's hard to see in the picture, but that is our Paws for Tails logo. So anyone who wants our positive pet therapy volunteers to visit schools and help kids who are just starting to read, they know that our dogs will show up wearing that blue bandana. So this is a therapy animal and definitely okay to pet, and as you can see, okay to give licks and kisses too. So here's the next one. Hopefully you guys see this one pretty quickly. But this is an emotional support animal, so you can see the ESA logo right on the vest. So colors can be tricky, but usually when it's brightly colored like red, it's almost always going to be a service dog or emotional support animal. Whereas usually, once again, the handler will match the dog, as we'll see in a few examples. But definitely this dog, they put the vest and there's a little medical tag. They don't want you to pet them. It's an emotional support animal focused on the owner. So this one is a service dog. He's wearing the vest, so that's pretty much the easiest way to tell. If they're wearing a vest, they definitely shouldn't be pet because they're most likely a service dog or an emotional support animal. And it should always say on the vest, like these past two examples, it says on the logo exactly what it is, an emotional support animal versus a service dog. So how about this picture? So sometimes it can be a bit unclear because this is a bandana and it's just kind of general funny font, just a little cute accessory that someone probably ordered on Amazon, but they are indicating that this is an emotional support animal. So they can kind of be the trickiest because there is no standard. Once again, there's no federal law saying what an emotional support animal or pet should be wearing or how to indicate that they're on the job. So it can kind of be determined up to the owner and on an individual basis. But if you see the words emotional support, animal, pet, anything, definitely they're busy and should be focused on the owner, so you should leave them alone. So next picture. So it might be hard to see, but this is actually a volunteer uniform. It says volunteer, and that's our logo there. If you weren't able to read the t-shirt, it is pretty clear in person, but you can also see that this volunteer is wearing a name tag. and the dog is interacting with multiple people, right? The owner handler is there to oversee everything and make sure the dog is providing that therapy support, but there's somebody else interacting with them. So this is definitely a therapy animal. So what do you think about this picture? So another therapy animal. He's making an effort to say hi to people. So while he's not wearing a bandana or anything to match the owner that we can see, he's pretty clearly trying to approach those people. So we can make a pretty solid guess that he's a therapy animal. And if it was a service dog or emotional support pet, the owner likely wouldn't be letting him say hi to these people like that. So how about this one? So this dog is focused and on comforting their owner. So pretty clear that they're an emotional support pet and that this person is using them to help refocus and calm down. So this one, he's not approaching others. He's pretty focused on the task at hand, which is guiding his owner. So this is definitely a service dog. While he's not wearing a brightly colored vest, this is what I kind of mentioned earlier when I said some type of device or harness that is designed to aid the person with the disability. So when you see something like this, you know that the dog is most likely doing a job for someone with a disability. They're a service dog. And like I mentioned, he's not approaching others. There's lots of people walking by, and you can see this dog is really focused on doing what he needs to do. So, what about this one? You can see this dog is busy helping his owner. We also notice that he's wearing a brightly colored green vest, so it's pretty safe to say he's a service dog. So he was definitely specially trained to be able to pull on the rope that's attached to the door in order to be able to open it. And like I said, he's wearing the vest, so there's two pretty clear indicators there. So how about this animal? What do you think? So you can see there's multiple people petting the cat. That looks like the handler is holding him or her, and he's wearing a little harness, probably to keep the cat safe. That's often required for cats that want to do pet therapy. And you can see that they're matching, or it looks like they're kind of matching. So this is pretty clear. It's a therapy animal, a therapy cat, which isn't as common as therapy dogs, but we love our therapy cats and our positive pet therapy program. So definitely we need more cats that are harness trained and comfortable going into new situations, because there's definitely always a demand for different types of therapy animals. But yeah, multiple people petting him and he's comfortable with it. So you can tell the owner is offering the cat and telling people that it's okay to pet him. So definitely a therapy animal. So this one might be a little interesting, but that's an emotional support duck, I'm pretty sure. Because once again, only dogs can become service dogs. So we know it's not any type of service dog. It seems that the duck is pretty focused on comforting the owner and is really paying attention only to that person. So it's an emotional support pet. So last but not least, um, you can tell from the picture that this little dog, actually, her name is Ginger, another one of our positive pet therapy. And she is approaching anyone and everyone. She's there to make friends and provide that comfort to the entire group, anyone who wants to interact with her. So, and she's wearing her blue bandana, so definitely a therapy animal. So once again, just to wrap things up, you always want to ask the owner or handler before petting or approaching any animal. So always ask, may I please pet your dog? This is something that you should be doing regardless, but if you notice that it might be a service dog or an emotional support pet, you most likely just want to let them keep doing what they're doing, but it's better to ask than to just go up and pet them. That's the absolute wrong thing to do. So try to always look at what the animal and the handler are wearing. When you see a bandana or a matching uniform on the person, that's going to be a therapy animal. When you see a brightly colored vest or special equipment, especially if it says service on it or service dog, you know it's a service dog. If they don't have any apparel, but they're not approaching others, because remember, emotional support pets can kind of blend the bandana or the vest. They might not be wearing anything, but they're not going to be approaching others because they're focused on their owner. That's an emotional support pet. So pay attention to what the handler does. That's just as important as what the dog is wearing or what the animal is wearing. Therapy animals, that's the only time the handler is going to approach you and say that it's okay to pet the animal. Whereas service dogs and emotional support pets, their owners are busy doing what they're doing and their animals are doing a job just for them. So that's why they're not going to approach you. Also, therapy animals usually have a set schedule. Like they might visit the hospital on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and go to the library on Tuesday, Thursday. And they'll have a specific time they do that. So you can always ask a therapy animal when they'll be visiting whatever location that they visit. Whereas you might encounter service dogs and emotional support pets anywhere, anytime. They're out doing their daily lives just like you are. So it's important to be aware of that. And if you do see them, make sure that you just let them keep doing what they're doing since they're busy and probably want to go on with their day. But when in doubt, just ask. Don't ask, oh, what is this dog? Do why do you need this dog type of thing, but ask, oh, may I pet your dog, or are you busy right now, would you mind if I petted your dog, just politely, or ask, is this dog a service dog? That's okay. Remember, you're allowed to ask, is this dog a service dog, and what are they trained to do? And I would assume similar questions would be okay for an emotional support pet, even though that's not laid out in the law. But if you just ask, oh, is this an emotional support pet? And the person says yes, then you know, oh, I should just leave them alone and say, oh, thanks, nice to meet you. Whereas if someone says, or you ask somebody and they say that they have a therapy animal, then you know that it's okay to pet them after you ask to pet them. So make sure that you just communicate to the owners, try to use those clues beforehand, and use your best judgment. So thanks for tuning in to another Pals and Paws live webinar.